So the first thing that occurred to me when I knew we were going to do Superman was I just wanted to know, why haven't they asked Laurie Anderson to do the soundtrack?
Oh, that would be excellent.
Because, I mean, I feel like she pitched for that gig like 40 years ago and still no one has returned her calls.
Oh, such a great record.
Such a long record. It's like that. I think it was the longest single in the UK top 40 of all time, something like that, I think.
I remember that, she was with Lou Reed forever.
Oh, okay.
And
what you mean, like what, romantically, or?
Yeah. They lived together,
really?
I believe, or they probably were married actually. And that when he was dying, he decided to go out tripping on mushrooms. And I thought, that's a great way to die. It probably would have been a better way to watch these Superman films too.
Hello and welcome to the Two Reel Cinema Club. I'm James Gunn.
And I'm Andres Lorente. And every other week on the Two Reel Cinema Club, we talk about two films. Sometimes those two films have the same name. For example, we watched a film called The Killer, and then we watched another film called The Killer. And then we watched a film called Donkey, and we watched another film called Donkey. And now we've got two films. If you add them together, they are Supermen. We saw Superman. We saw Superman.
We saw Superman. So they do have slightly different names, these films, although I didn't realise until recently that the film currently on release throughout the world is just called Superman.
Yeah.
But the 1978 picture is called Superman the Movie.
Oh.
Presumably named by the same people who named F1 registered trademark The Movie.
Do you read anything into that? Is that fully a legal agreement, or there were previous Superman films to the 1978, I believe.
There were like a whole bunch of, slightly lame black and white will this do Superman films.
Yeah.
I don't know whether calling it The Movie is just a sign of how much of an event Superman the Movie was when it was released.
Yeah.
This current version of Superman was originally going to be called Superman Legacy.
Of course.
I think they dropped the after title fairly late into development. So it was going to be called Superman Legacy until fairly recently. By my count, this is the 7th main live-action Superman movie.
Wow.
So we'll talk about how it sort of feels to me like maybe they should call it Superman 2. They could have called it Superman Returns, but that one has already been used. So we're back to it's like we've come all the way around the clock face to midnight again. We're back to Superman.
Superman Returns again, perhaps.
Superman
or re-returns.
So we have watched the new Superman, and we are comparing it to the old Superman. But let's kick off with the new movie.
Yes, that's a good place to start.
So, Superman in brackets 2025, directed by James Gunn, who is now the new mastermind of the DC extended cinematic universe. James Gunn, interestingly, started out working with Lloyd Kaufman, low-budget American filmmaker. I think his first credit was Romeo and Juliet. He wrote the script for Scooby-Doo. Did you know that? The live-action version of Scooby-Doo?
No.
He wrote this. He wrote the script for the Snyder version of Dawn of the Dead. Made a bunch of movies, which we might talk about later on, but most famously Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, and then the two sequels to that. He has moved over from Marvel to DC, and this is his first big headline effort in his new chair.
Ooh, can you do that? Go from Marvel to DC?
Well, when I was at school, no, clearly not. You would just get beaten up every day. But it's what crazy new brave world we live in now. It's the 21st century. I don't understand what the rules are anymore. Shall I tell you the story of the new movie called Superman?
I've seen enough of it, so maybe for the audience you should tell the story.
So, as you can tell from our intro, Superman is back. He's back again, but different. Because after an opening intertitle, which explains the background of metahumans, Superman's arrival 30 years ago, his emergence onto the public sphere 3 years ago, his recent politicking, his defeat by the Hammer of Baravia, we see a bruised, injured Superman thrown to the ground in a film which will see him on the back foot for about 70% of its running time. So the beaten up and bruised, wheezing Superman is rescued, kind of, by his dog Crypto, patched up and sent back into battle. So Superman, at the start of the movie, has recently prevented a war in the made-up country of Jahanpur, but maybe his actions were illegal, maybe not everyone is happy about it, and his new girlfriend, the journalist Lois Lane, tells him that he should have thought twice. Plus, it turns out that Superman still can't beat the metal-suited metahuman, the Hammer of Baravia, and, unknown to him, but known to us in the audience, the evil mastermind Lex Luthor is pulling the strings and making life difficult for him. And then, while Superman protects Metropolis from a giant fire-breathing monster, along with his superhero buddies Green Lantern, Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific, Lex Luthor breaks into his fortress of solitude with his hench people, Engineer and Ultraman, and discovers something about Superman's background that will turn the people of Earth against him, and he takes his dog. So, after Superman hands himself in, he discovers Luthor's role in the whole plot and is crippled by exposure to kryptonite courtesy of metahuman Metamorpho. Are you still following? Are you still following all this? This is complicated, isn't it?
That's his name, Metamorpho?
That's his real name, apparently, Metamorpho. Oh. He's introduced as Element Man.
Element Man, that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's just that's for the benefit of people who can't quite remember all the other superhero names they've had to remember so far. So, can Lois Lane and Mr. Terrific bust Superman out of jail? Can Superman save the day? And what will happen when he faces the truth about his own background? So I've already hinted at this. You know what? This is sort of a Superman reboot, and it's sort of travelling back to the beginning, and it does a lot of interesting things because it doesn't attempt to tell an origin story, and it doesn't pretend that we don't know anything about Superman. But I would call this film The Empire Strikes Back of Superman movies. Insofar as, he spends most of the time on the ground, beaten and bruised, not quite able to fight back. And I think it works. I saw this film in slightly unusual circumstances this week, insofar as I saw it twice, back to back.
What?
So I went with Rachel. We came out, and Edward was home minding the dog. We have our own Crypto the dog. So he was minding Kiki. I went home, and I felt a little bit bad that I'd gone with Rachel, not him. And I said, well, do you want to go and see Superman? He said, yeah, all right. So I went back and saw it again a couple of hours later on. So I saw it twice, back to back. Don't often do that with movies. And the first time I came out of it, I was a little bit nonplussed, and I had a lot of questions. I wasn't entirely sure how much I'd enjoyed it or how successful I thought it was. But when I watched it for a second time, it grew on me. Oh. In fact, it really grew on me. Oh. So I have come out of watching this film back to back twice, actually rather enjoying it.
Ooh.
But I suspect my experience is a bit different to yours. Am I right?
Yes.
Oh, that's a knowing laugh.
Oh, come on. We're on different sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Of course I had a different experience. Did you like it more the second time then?
I did like it more the second time, actually. I think, which is often the case, isn't it? You know what's coming.
Yeah.
So you can look out for the details more. You feel a little bit less wrong-footed by the surprises. And instead of being a little bit disappointed that he spent most of the time on the back foot, I started to see why that's a really useful, clever idea.
Oh. And how did you get the percentage of 70% of the time on the back foot? Was that is that in the credits, at the final credits?
Yeah, no, I took a stopwatch the second time around. I wish I had. I mean, that's my guess, but it feels like it. I mean, originally when I wrote my notes, it was 80% on the back foot, and that seemed a little bit excessive. I'm going to guess 70%. I bet there is someone who has gone to it with a full stopwatch. I bet someone has figured it out. Shall I explain to you why I think it works?
Please, someone needs to do that.
And then I will let you. I will let you offer your own opinions. So I think there's a big problem with Superman insofar as, even though I loved like the original 1978 movies, and I loved the Christopher Reeve portrayal, and it was all great, but Superman is a boring character.
Yeah.
Because he's invulnerable. So there's a very famous shot in the Superman Returns picture from, was that 2006? I might have to look that up. Where Superman is stepping in to stop a baddie, and he gets shot in the eye, and you get this slow motion close up of the bullet hitting Superman's eyeball and crumpling up and bouncing off him. I mean, he's utterly invulnerable, which makes him utterly boring. The only thing that he's vulnerable to is kryptonite, so you always know that kryptonite is definitely going to appear in every film. Otherwise there isn't a story. And then his other vulnerability is his loved ones, so you know that his loved ones will be threatened somehow, because that's the only way that he can be made vulnerable. And so faced with this problem, that Superman being able to do everything and combat everything is really boring, they solved it by making him not invulnerable. So he's like a sort of C-tier superhero in his own film. He's constantly getting beaten up and bruised. He's losing most of the battles that he's in. At the very beginning of the movie, he's wheezing and broken, and his robot servants do a fastest CT scan of all time, I think, and say, "Oh, you've ruptured your bladder, you've ruptured your colon." It all seems pretty nasty. Then I would say for a lot of the rest of the movie, we see the same thing again and again. He's constantly being defeated. And I think this is a really clever, necessary way to change the character, to make the movie interesting. Instead of just deciding, well, there's more kryptonite, even more kryptonite. I seem to remember in Batman Returns, the climax of the movie was that Lex Luthor had made like an entire several miles wide rock of kryptonite and crushed Superman under it. And the only thing Superman did in the entire film was basically lift heavy things. So he was constantly lifting heavy things. And at the climax of the movie, he was lifting this very, very heavy thing, which was made out of kryptonite. Oh, incredible.
Oh, God.
Which is all kind of, pretty boring. So why not just rip up the rule book and decide, oh, actually, he can be hurt in loads of different ways. And I think that makes him a much better character, gives him a proper journey, gives him things to realise, things to learn, gives him a little bit of character growth, lets us feel a little bit more empathy for him as well. So I think it works. I think I enjoyed it.
The character needs to be a little bit flawed to be interesting. That's sort of my takeaway there. You confused me a little bit because I think you said Batman Returns, and I thought, what, there's kryptonite in Batman Returns? It is Superman Returns. I'm always confused by kryptonite, because what's the thing that he's allergic to? Krypton?
Krypton is the planet.
Is the planet. But is kryptonite from Krypton?
Kryptonite is like a bit of the planet. So it doesn't really explain why, if your whole planet was made of this stuff, life must have been pretty tough growing up.
Very tough, unless it's sort of like a vaccination. You get inoculated to a little bit of it if you've got a little bit of it, but if you don't have the little bit, you are allergic to it or something. I've never really embraced this idea that it's like us being, allergic to carbon or something like that, right? So it's strange, and then you think, well, is this why his parents send him to Earth from kryptonite? He's the one guy who's got that peanut allergy that just drives him nuts, right? So they say, oh God, we've got to get him out of here. So they send
it was either that or an EpiPen, and you know how expensive those are.
I definitely agree with you. It's more interesting if the character has flaws, but I also find like whenever he has a problem, it's pretty easily resolved. For example, he can have all that damage, and the AI detection of his illnesses and maladies was incredible. Those robots were great. So your job is in jeopardy, my friend. But it seems like sunshine heals him, which I got a little sick of that, because you think, is this an advertisement for tanning booths or something like that, where sunshine's just going to heal? Even Superman can be healed instantly. So I think this is kind of my overall problem with so many superhero films, or what are we calling them, meta-human films now? I don't know. That there's always a solution. If I can't do something here, I can make my eyes go red and burn a hole in there and pick that up, or I can grow some new body part, and that's gonna get me out of this certain situation. So I find like it's still too easy for most of the metahumans and the superheroes, and that just ultimately means that the outcome of the story is foretold, basically.
Yep. Yeah.
And he should. What about the underwear? It's still on the outside of the body, or just seems a fashion statement that is antiquated. Either that, or maybe we should all be putting underwear on the outside. I don't know.
There's a line like quite late on in the movie where Superman sees the bad news on the TV, and his mum tells him, "Oh, I cleaned your boots." And I was wondering from that little bit of line, did the mum design the uniform? Maybe she did. She seems very proud of it.
Yeah, I think the flaws are probably an upgrade. You're right, because he didn't feel very flawed at all in another film that we'll talk about later. But I think that for me the flaws in the filmmaking might go farther back than that. Like, I felt this is very much, it could be a reboot because it feels very similar in some ways to the original script. And I think what's coming into my mind is that a lot of these films are super conservative, even though we think of them as being these big action films. They're really safe buckets for investors to pour their money into, and these are the films we're going to start getting. So as a result, it's interesting because James Gunn does try to sneak some interesting politics in there, or there's a lot of zeitgeist, maybe too much like sporadically painted zeitgeist and not enough depth to it, but he's got some issues in there that are current, I think. But I think you're still bound to, I've got to do the superhero picture, and it has to have these very big action sequences with these long climax moments. And for me, that sort of weighs it down. But I don't think he's straying too much from the original script, or I guess the 1978 script. So it almost feels like he's sort of remaking that. And that's why I think in part you're seeing it as a reboot, because we're getting this series going again. So we're obviously going to get a few more Superman films, is my guess.
Well, I think this one probably needs to make enough money to justify making a whole series of them. And it hasn't absolutely lit the box office on fire.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be just about okay.
Okay.
But I don't think it's been as big as the hope was. I was rather excited to see it from seeing the first trailers because I wanted to see the dog. And I think the dog is the, as you Americans quaintly say, MVP. I think I think that's the right word, isn't it?
It is.
The dog is the MVP.
Krypton. He's called Krypton too.
No, he's called Crypto.
Crypto. So he's not allergic to crypto, but he's allergic to kryptonite.
Yeah, exactly. He's named after the unstable and poorly regulated electronic currency. That's right. Which seems somehow very appropriate.
That's very good. Ooh.
I think there is some pretty skillful writing in this film, insofar as, and especially when we compare it to the 1978 film, this film doesn't waste any time.
Yeah,
does it?
No.
I mean, you have that very quick little written summary of what's happened until now at the beginning of the movie, which I personally feel you could do without entirely.
Yeah.
I think most people going to see the movies are aware that there is a version of the world where people wear capes and they can fly, and you don't need to explain too much more about that for them to happily sit and enjoy the movie. But I did write down like a few little timestamps. So they walk into the pocket universe at 12 minutes in. Lex arrives at the North Pole to steal the secret from Superman's computer at 27 minutes in. This is the sort of thing which would probably be the midpoint in most films. It's pretty front loaded. It gets going really quick and doesn't kind of let up. But interestingly, there is a much discussed, very, very talky scene pretty early on in the movie, isn't there?
The interview.
Which I think lasts like up to 10 or 12 minutes. It's a long scene where Lois and Clark Kent are just chatting in her apartment. And I think that scene actually is relatively fun. It does what it needs to do. It's I'm very impressed that they didn't feel the need to cut away or to intersperse it with some punching or to go away to a little bit of action and come back. They credit the audience with enough attention to sit down and mull over some of the arguments that they are discussing. And they are talking about agency, about unilaterality, about the body politic. I think it's some interesting arguments that they make, and it works as a scene. So as far as the shape of the movie and the way that it is structured, I think they haven't done the absolute obvious thing. And I think it succeeds in part because of that. I feel like it starts with that moment in the hero's journey that usually comes about 65% of the way through the movie, doesn't it? Which is like, at your lowest ebb. the kind of the all is lost moment. It almost starts with that, doesn't it? And then it allows Superman to pick himself up and dust himself off, get back into it. I think interesting little bit of structuring. I think it works. I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Did you chuckle at any point during this film?
I don't think so.
That was a moan. That's not a chuckle. I do understand the difference.
I chuckled like this.
The same chuckle you do when someone like drops something heavy on your toe. Okay, yeah.
That's like. Not really. I don't remember chuckling out loud. I think it is a comedy, though, right? There's some comic moments. It's interesting.
I mean, there are some comic moments.
Yeah, we used to call them comic books, but comic books weren't necessarily funny. And I think when we get to the other film, I think it's designed to be a comedy. So I think there were some things. Did you stay for the tag scene at the very end of the credits?
We did, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so that's supposed to be funny. That was a very odd decision to leave that in there because I don't know if that was part of the original script or it was probably written as a tag scene and not terribly funny.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. How about yourself? I mean, you're the comedian. You know what's funny and what's not.
I did enjoy some of the gags from Mr. Terrific. Who is like this character that I've never heard of, and he does a lot of the heavy lifting in the film.
Yeah, he does.
He's kind of the protagonist for the first half of the second half of the movie. So from like 50 to 75% of the end of the movie, it's largely Mr. Terrific's film, isn't it?
That's the third quarter. The third quarter of the film.
That's the word I'm looking for. The third quarter. See, that comes from the same sport as MVP, probably, doesn't it?
Does football, American football.
His rather cynical side-eye look at Superman, and some of his amusing comments did make me chuckle a little bit. The thing I grinned at from ear to ear with was the antics of Superdog. So I adored everything that Crypto the dog did. Crypto the dog rather reminds me of my dog. My dog is a little bit better behaved, not enormously better behaved. But she does many of those same mannerisms of running around and wanting to play and looking at you quizzically. And, she does all of that and she does it very well.
It's very interesting, though, because Crypto gets a little backstory ultimately when we should have done a spoiler bell.
Oh, yeah, should we do a spoiler bell?
How about a spoiler dog whistle that no one can hear? That's what we did. Ladies and gentlemen, we did a spoiler dog whistle. That's why no one heard it.
Dog whistle means something else these days, doesn't it? Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, okay, so spoiler dog whistle and now a bell for those who have human hearing. Right, spoil away.
Well, it just turns out that Crypto is Superman's, cousin's dog, and he's dog-sitting her. So I don't know why he has superpowers. I guess I was confused by that, because there aren't too many people with superpowers in the film, but Crypto is the cousin's dog living in the ice crystal lair that Superman has created for himself. So he does get a little bit of a backstory, but he clearly has superpowers, because he's in on the journey full force.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to presume that he also is from planet Krypton. It'll be a little bit like us naming our dog Urt or something like that. Supergirl, the movie, is slated for 2026.
And did you think that was Supergirl who we saw?
That's Supergirl, I'm pretty sure that's Supergirl who we saw.
I wonder if it's the actor who's going to play Supergirl.
I think it is. I wish I'd written her name down, but I think that is all already on the slate.
Yikes. Okay.
You know what a sucker I am. Supergirl turned up, and as she walked off after spending 20 seconds on screen, I thought, "Yep, I'm already buying my ticket to go and see her." I would like to see Supergirl in a movie. Yeah,
you are a sucker.
That's exactly what I am. What's wrong with cinema today? The reason I ask about the gags is because there are goodies and there are baddies in this movie, and I think the one way that you can definitely tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys is that the good guys are allowed to be funny and the bad guys are not. So there's a fairly spirited performance from Nicholas Hoult as Superman's nemesis, Lex Luthor. He's a talented actor, and apparently he had the biggest paycheck on the movie, but he's not really allowed to be funny. So none of the bad guys really are allowed to get proper laughs in. I think that is an important distinction that they've chosen quite early on in the development of the film.
Yeah. Well, what is it? The Hall of Justice team, or they keep changing their name in the film. I guess I think
the Justice Gang.
Justice Gang is the comic relief, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess they're kind of funny, but I don't. Yeah, I didn't find it to be a full-fledged comedy. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy is, right. I mean, that's a funny film.
Yeah,
those are funny films. Yeah. So I mean, I can see what James Gunn is trying to do here. For me, it didn't really work so much, but that's okay.
Shares a lot in common with Guardians of the Galaxy. Not just color palette again, all those kind of neon purples, but also sort of tone. I think both films are kind of sort of about family, and they're both kind of serio-comic, and it kind of dips into the kind of this serious family kind of feels, a couple of times, and then comes back out and gives you some gags, and it's very much. I'm sure this is what was required of Gunn, that he was asked to make a Superman film that was a little bit like Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's kind of broadly what we have got.
For me, maybe I read this film kind of incorrectly, or I was trying to work with the film to satisfy my needs. I thought that some of the touches that I did like were the things that he tries to do to make this topical, I guess. Lex Luthor is trying to sell his security forces to the UN to protect the world from Superman. So I love this idea of trying to create a bogeyman in order to profit from it. And I also like this idea that he has created... Is it It's Ultraman, right?
Ultraman, yeah.
It's kind of his head warrior, his first choice gladiator, and it ends up he's basically sort of stolen this technology. He's stolen the Superman technology, if you will. So he's based Ultraman on Superman. So you get this interesting scene towards the end of the film where Superman's final nemesis, like Lex Luthor, is not a particularly strong antagonist physically, but he's created this force to fight his battles for him. So Superman ends up battling Superman. Towards the end, when he's able to pull off the mask of Ultraman and reveal it as being something based on him, some sort of entity or artificial intelligence based on him, which was, I think that's a pretty neat little touch to have in there as well. I loved the deep faking. I think they changed the footage of this final video that Superman's parents send him to Earth with so that he can study and he can remember them. But it's manipulated by Lex Luthor and his gang to make it look like Superman is actually trying to destroy Earth or hurt humans in some way. I think that, like, the deep fake thing, these are all current things that I think resonate a little bit for me. I was going to interrupt you there just to say that I came away thinking that revelation that Superman's parents were actually evil and telling him to form a super harem and kill as many Earth people as he could. I interpreted that as being the truth. Oh, because I think the fundamental theme of the movie is you can choose who you are, and that Superman has chosen to be a good guy and do the right thing, even though and once he discovers, oh no, actually, my genuine purpose was to enslave the human race, but I'm going to choose to be good. Oh. So, I could be wrong, and maybe we will get more information about this in the next Superman film, and the next, and the next, and the next. Well, but I interpreted it as being 100%. I mean, I feel like they really, really went out of their way in a slightly unconvincing way to show that this is genuine by having Mr. Terrific come in and say, "Oh, I've seen fake footage before, and that's definitely real." Oh, so I can tell a Photoshop, he says, from the pixels. Oh, so really? I'm guessing that they've written all this extra material. Lots and lots of people justifying why it is definitely not fake. I think we, the audience, are supposed to believe that this is not fake, because then Superman at least can have the journey of becoming, not his parents' son, but himself, his own self-made man. Jeez, I may be mixing the parents and the mission statements at this point, though, because I felt like he was sent. They had originally sent him there to help Earthlings, and then I think as a result of the way you're interpreting the film, that he really considers his adopted family out there in Kansas to be the better parents, or the real parents, are the ones who want him to be a good man and do good things.
I mean, that's kind of that's like the punchline of his personal journey, isn't it? Because he starts out, he's injured, and the robots tell him, "Well, shall I show you the footage of your parents?" He finds it reassuring, and so he watches the footage of Bradley Cooper, and I can't remember who's playing the mum, telling him some reassuring platitudes in, I'll perhaps come back to this in a moment. It sounded a little bit like Hebrew to me. I'm sure Hebrew speakers will tell me it's something like Hebrew. But at the end of the movie, we have a mirror scene. His robots say, would you like us to show you the footage of your parents? He finds it reassuring. And this time, the parents that he's watching are the people that he's decided are his real the parents in his heart, the parents who really love him and who made him the man that he is, who are the adoptive parents, the Kansans. Is that a real word, Kansan?
I hope so. Yeah, Kansans. They are Kansans.
Okay, right.
Or Smallvillers.
Right.
Yes. From Smallville.
Right. I apologize to Kansan listeners for questioning the name. So I think if it's not fake, or if it is fake, then that rather undermines that whole personal journey.
Yeah.
So I think Bradley Cooper turning out to be actually evil, and it is Bradley Cooper, so he probably is evil. Is the legitimate truth. The reason I mentioned the Hebrew thing is I was going to touch on this about Superman being, a broadly Jewish character. I mean, this film is timely, and this film, clearly was deeply into development before we started to see unrest, the current unrest in Israel and Palestine, the current unrest, or the escalating unrest, I suppose, in Ukraine. That's been going on for a while. But Superman is broadly a Jewish character, I think, is he not? I mean, he's created by two Jewish comic book writers.
At a very precarious time to be Jewish in Europe, for sure, right? It's 1938-ish, or 30s anyway, when they actually do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, that makes sense.
And there's kind of like this notion of his story being that of an immigrant who comes to America.
Yeah.
And sort of, puts down roots, and, he's from a foreign land, but he wants to, integrate and become, truly a native.
Yeah.
It feels like, quite a Jewish kind of story. I think they're kind of leaning into that. I mean, the film does feel pretty explicitly about the Gazan conflict and the kind of the Ukrainian conflict, isn't it? Lex Luthor is a mixture of sort of, he looks like Jeff Bezos and he acts like Elon Musk. And the Baravian prime minister seems to me to be, pretty transparently Trumpian, with his kind of crazy hair and his mannerisms and his kind of pride. So it feels to me like they're leaning into that pretty hard, which again seems, a little bit refreshing for a multi-million-dollar mainstream movie.
Yes, and Superman's coming to the aid, we think anyway, of the Barovians, is that it?
Jahanpur.
And they are the brown people. It's clearly a group of brown people.
Yes, although like, some mixed ethnicities, I think, in that populace.
Yeah.
So, but certainly prominently many brown actors in that scene.
Yes, a lot of brown actors in that scene, and their territory is about to be taken away from them. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, I don't know when this was filmed, or it was certainly written several years ago. So it's before things really went to hell in the Middle East. But it ends up being a zeitgeisty kind of moment there, because it seems very true to reality at the moment, anyway. I think those were clever things. I liked those elements, because it felt like this is more than about Superman as an action hero.
I mean, most of the time that he is doing action type stuff, he is saving and rescuing people, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's stopping, buildings collapse on cars when they're trying to drive away from a disaster.
Yeah.
He's, hugging this little girl to stop her being ripped to shreds by these sort of gas cylinders.
Yeah.
He's rescuing a squirrel and a dog. I mean, most of his action is about protecting people rather than trying to punch bad guys.
Yeah.
Themes of this film, I've written down agency. Basically, a real hero tries to do the right thing. There's a couple of good speeches in this movie. which gave me genuine feels. And I'm sure you are more emotionally sophisticated and less easily manipulated, but I fell for them hook, line and sinker. There's the speech that he gives at the very end when he's coming in to effectively put the cuffs on Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
And he tells him how, I'm just a guy. I wake up every morning and I don't know what to do. And I just put one foot in front of the other and I try to do the right thing. And now I found that quite moving. And then there's the scene, and I was very moved by this both times. The scene where he's sitting with his adoptive father on the porch, and the dad just says, "I couldn't be more proud of you."
Yeah.
And it's these are very sweet films that really kind of they did it for me. And I think that notion of a hero isn't necessarily somebody in a cape. It's somebody who just tries to do the right thing, even if everybody else is being cynical or, a bit tired or can't be bothered or isn't really sure. It's getting out of bed every morning. And even if you don't know what the right, what to do, you put one foot in front of the other and try to do the right thing. I think it's, for the modern day, that's a great theme. I would like to see more art that expands on that exact theme, because that's the theme I want to hear right now.
I had Superman underwear when I was graduating from primary school in 5th grade. So that's a long time ago, but I feel like that was too early to have. It was they were called underoos. There was this top, a t-shirt with the Superman badge kind of over the left breast, and then these red underwear. Everything was white back then. Red underwear with a yellow band across the top, I guess. And then when I think my aunt remembered that I had that for my 5th grade graduation. So then when I graduated from high school, she gave me a Superman towel, which I still use in the sauna to this day. So at some point, I know that I saw the 78 film, and that's probably why I got the underoos, because it was about that time. But I kind of realized that I actually don't like Superman very much, and I don't like superhero movies. I'm sorry. But I think maybe it's partly because of exactly what you said at the beginning, just this flawless personality. It just kind of makes it boring. So this film, if it is a reboot, and they've made him, ironically, just when I've started to hear this term meta-human, they've actually made him more human. That's probably a good decision going forward.
I will buy that. The new human Superman. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Superhuman. A little bit of police activity in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Squads of it, calling out numbers and stuff. So
it's probably worth, as we try and clear up the debris and look for that missing dog, it's probably worth phoning the Cliche Squad.
Cliche Squad.
Oh my God, it's always worth calling the Cliche Squad.
They are busy people.
I just feel safer after we've talked to the Cliche Squad.
It's funny how, even though the Cliche Squad have an entire squad dedicated to chasing up cliches, the cliches are still multiplying. We're not seeing a reduction in crime, are we? We've already established I really rather enjoyed this film more than I expected to, more the second time around than the first time. Or maybe I'll force you to come back and I'll mention one thing which I think could have been definitely improved. But broadly, I enjoyed it. But my complaint for the Cliche Squad is I want to know why every film these days apparently must feature Elon Musk as an antagonist.
Yeah.
So I feel like we just saw that in Mickey 17, I think.
Yes.
And now Elon Musk returns again as the antagonist in this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like, are we living in a world where there is a real life Bond villain who is kind of so obvious and so omnipresent that he has to appear in every film that needs a Bond villain type villain? Because there must be other types of bad people that we can put in films. Does everybody have to be Elon Musk?
He's a great one at the moment, I think, because he ties the past to the future really well. So I think he's going to be on our minds for a while. And then he's going to have 600 children here very soon. So then the Muscovites.
Have you got any cliches that you would like to report?
I've got two, possibly. One, I like the cliche that I'm going to talk about because I think James Gunn does a great job just subverting it a little bit. The dumb blonde girlfriend in this film. So Lex Luthor has this. We think she's mindless and superficial, But she's been taking selfies a lot, and she seems like an influencer or something like that, big media presence. And it turns out that she's taking pictures of herself in the foreground, but there's always crucial information of all these bad things that Lex Luthor is doing in the background. So she ends up being a kind of hero, and she's actually not interested in the super strong guy. She's interested in this really nerdy reporter, and it's a wonderful contortion of the cliche. So I'm going to mention that.
Yeah.
My bigger thing, it's more of a theme that I'm seeing in a lot of these films these days, is these endless climax moments. It just takes too long. And this is going to be controversial, especially with people who are fans of the Kama Sutra or the Kundalinis or any of the people practicing the tantrics. So I apologize to anyone in the TRCC family who's...
Sting, stop listening now.
Yes, you could stop listening now, but I believe in shorter climax. I think most of us are really at heart on the 7-minute plan, especially when we're older. So it's like we know especially with the superhero film, we know what the result is going to be. I would like to get there a little faster because we don't need that much what I call screen foreplay beforehand. I'd like to see a quicker setup and payoff, because in this film you've had pre-climaxes and then you have climaxes, and it's too much. So I would rather have honestly a shorter film, a shorter experience, and I'm going to admit it right here, a quicker climax.
This film is only a little shade over 2 hours, actually. It's
actually a short film from what we've been watching lately, right?
Yeah, compared to compared to some of the ones that we've seen. I mean, I think I think they sort of play it largely as a gag that late in the movie, after Crypto comes in and saves the day once again, disables the little cameras and allows Superman to more or less defeat Ultraman.
Yeah.
We have this message, the Raptors have arrived, who is this kind of airborne squad of goons. Presumably there's 200 of them flying around with jetpacks.
Yeah.
And I think it's a relatively clever gag, really, that this is the one moment that the movie allows Superman to be effortless, and he dispatches like all 200 of these bad guys in about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's supposed to subvert your expectations, and I'm guessing the idea is, well, you've defeated one big bad, he's defeated the engineer, now he's defeated Ultraman, now is going to come the big boss, the climax of the video game, and actually that one is over in the blink of an eye.
See, Lex Luthor,
that's cute, and that gag probably doesn't work if you don't build up with those smaller earlier climaxes. So I wonder whether James Gunn is kind of mindful of your tantric request. But he's gonna play with it.
A long time to get there. Yes. Well, I do like the fact that it's all this technology at work, but once you sort of disperse with the technology, the Raptors coming after you, it ends up in a good old fashioned fisticuffs between basically Superman and himself, which is the Ultraman product there. Fists, hand to hand.
There can't be enough films of big blokes punching each other.
Exactly. That's old school.
So I would say overall a mixed bag, but what I pulled out of the bag I enjoyed. I think a few surprises and an enjoyable afternoon. So I enjoyed it enough that I went and watched it twice.
Twice in one day?
Twice in one day. Twice within like 6 hours, something like that. Yes. Shall we have a break?
Yes.
And then by way of complete and utter change, we will talk about a movie from 1978 called Superman.
Welcome back, everyone, as we move on to talk about a completely different film called Superman, the movie.
Superman, the movie,
I just realized that it's called Superman, the movie, because in the first part of the show you told the audience. I just called it Superman. You could call it Superman with the longest graphic credit opening in history.
It is enormous, isn't it? Yes, but it really feels like an event. It feels the opening of this movie really feels like you've brought your whole family to the local cinema on a Sunday evening, and this is the one time when you all make the trip once a year.
And you arrive late, and it doesn't make any difference if you arrive late.
Yeah, you've missed nothing.
I've got to ask you right away, why? Tell me why.
Do you have any other questions for me, Counsel?
So, is it not obvious?
There is. I can hear the cliche squad in the background. Interestingly, there is no shortage of Superman movies. So like there have been 7 mainstream Superman movies, but like a whole bunch of other ones. There've been animated Superman movies and black and white Superman movies, plus the television series. When I was growing up, certainly before Superman the movie came out, or about around that time probably, Superman in the UK meant one specific thing. Do you know what Superman in Britain meant to an 8-year-old boy back in the late 70s?
Yeah, it's the Nietzschean thing, right? Franz Nietzsche had this idea of Superman.
I did read a lot of Nietzsche as a boy, you're right. But before that even, there were Superman-branded sweet cigarettes.
Oh.
And that was the first thing that any British boy would think of in the late 70s if you mentioned Superman.
Those little candy cigarettes.
Yeah, his candies, they were like white sticks with a little red decoration at the end. So it looked from a distance like you were smoking a cigarette.
That's right.
And they were Superman branded in the UK. So Superman sweet cigarettes. That's what his name was. They were dark times, the 70s, dark times.
Oh, wow.
Out of them all, I think even Superman 2025 acknowledges that Superman, the movie, 1978, is the daddy.
Yeah.
Not only does it steal the music from that 1978 movie, it even steals the opening credits, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because, admittedly, they don't go on for 10 minutes, but it still has that multicolored zoom onto the screen that we see in this original movie. So James Gunn is clearly announcing that he has watched the 1978 version many times and wants you to know it. So it's only fair that we should comply with his wishes and compare his movie to the earlier one.
Ah, well done. Yeah, I agree. Amazingly, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster are also credited in 2025 with a screenplay.
Yes!
As they are here in 1978, and with Mario Puzo. Fresh off of Godfather. That sort of stuff that he was doing.
So it feels like Marlon Brando couldn't make a movie without him being involved.
Yeah, and I think he wrote the book Godfather first. I believe that.
He did. Have you read the book of The Godfather?
I've not, but
it's pretty bad actually.
Yeah, I imagine
it's pretty bad. Apart from a few pivotal scenes, like there's a very memorable scene where someone puts a dead horse in a bed.
Yes,
all of the memorable stuff from the movie is basically just in the book.
Yeah,
and then there's a bunch of padding and weird stuff around it. It's peculiar book. Yeah.
So we'll ask ourselves during the course of this review whether Mario Puzo is a worse screenwriter or novel writer. I think there's a lot of how not to write a screenplay in this film, probably, but we can go into some depth there later. We open in June 1938, and curtains open like in a stage play. It sort of opens up kind of stagey. We've got a child who's reading a comic book, and we get a view of the Daily Planet newspaper. This is 1978, so there's still great model work, where we get to see the Daily Planet and moon and space and all that. After this very long opening credit sequence, we are deep in space. There's sort of like these adobe homes in making a city on the planet of Krypton. Marlon Brando as Jor-El he makes some sort of judgment of someone on Krypton, like a criminal, and this guilty person is frozen in a mirror and then shot into space.
I mean, it's bizarre. This is like one of those movies that starts 5 times, doesn't it? It starts with the theatre curtains. It starts then with the black and white comic book. Then it starts with the credits. And then it starts with Marlon Brando setting up the sequel.
Yeah.
So have this, this fairly lengthy scene with some characters which you never see again for the whole of the rest of the movie.
Exactly.
Because they're going to come back in 2 years.
There you go.
For the sequel. All of this stuff, before the movie has really begun. They keep trying to decide how to begin. So they just keep doing all the beginnings.
Yes. And Krypton is about to suffer this impending planetary catastrophe, but he's going to stay on the planet until the end with his wife, Vonda, and they decide to send their son to Earth so he can survive. In the travels to Earth, he will never be alone because he's in this seed pod heading towards Earth. He's destined to help the Earthlings there, but the Earthlings are sort of thousands of years behind him, according to Jor-El. Krypton is eventually destroyed. I think we see it exploding sort of in the background. The young baby ages. He develops as he's going. He's learning from his father's recordings en route. So there's a connection to that other film with the recordings that he's off to Earth with. He crash lands as a young boy. And the Kents find him, apparently in Smallville, Kansas. They adopt him. And he immediately sort of lifts a car up all by himself. So they know from the very beginning that he has special powers. In high school, he's kind of a loser, I guess. He's the guy who carries the gear for the football team, and it seems like he's hiding a lot of his superpowers, but we do learn in his high school years that he's faster than a speeding train. But what is he's I forgot exactly how, but they were exercising. He was running with his father or something like that, and his father dies of a heart attack.
Yeah.
And this is a crucial moment because after his father's death, he really starts to use his powers more and more, but he decides he must leave Ma Kent and go to Metropolis to help the Earthlings find a world with greater truth, justice, and more of, I think in this film they say the American way, maybe the humankind way. I think in the other film they start talking more about humankind and not just about the United States. So he's Clark Kent. Will he be a great journalist, or will he be in high demand as Superman? Will he fall into an intra-office love affair with colleague Lois Lane, or remain an eligible bachelor, or two eligible bachelors? Does it make any sense to ask these questions when we already know the answers? So I think, as you mentioned straight away, this is sort of like a 30-minute opening before we get to the story, or the present day story for the film, and it's probably
much
a 2-hour
more
film.
than that.
I mean, I wrote down at least 30 minutes, but
so I timed it when I watched it this week. So he lands in the cornfields in Kansas at 24 minutes
24. Okay.
The father dies at 33 minutes
okay.
in.
There you go.
So he arrives in Metropolis at 48 minutes into the film. So this is a very leisurely opening to this film. By the time we got 48 minutes into 2025 Superman, Superman had already been kind of beaten 4 times and had a victory twice, and my goodness me, this film is leisurely. This film really behaves like it knows that it is an event.
It takes a long, long time to get going. So I think that's one criticism I would have for the screenplay for sure. You got to get something happening a lot sooner than that. So, and as you said, it sort of begins 4 or 5 different times. So that definitely is not a smooth start anyway. But Lois and Kent, they're sort of mugged on their first day together. They've got like a date, and he's awkward on this date or this outing with her, but he catches a bullet, and it's very clear that he has these superpowers. We do see Lex Luthor, who has a love interest similar to in the 2025 film.
They're called Miss Tessmacher in both films.
Actually. Oh, there you go. So that's the same name, yeah. He's got this apartment, which is basically inside Grand Central Station, as far as I could tell. I mean, it looked very much like that. And he's sort of used a train to kill someone at one point. So we know that Lex Luthor's up to no good, let's say. But I think they're very, very slapstick. Next, Otis is his chum, Ned Beatty, the sidekick. And this is definitely supposed to be a comedy. So I don't think there was some doubt, I guess, in the other film. But what was your take on this? Was this a comedy?
It struggles slightly with tone, this film, doesn't it? Because the Superman stuff is a little bit light, but we're supposed to experience some genuine peril. And there are some pretty dark moments in the Superman side of the story, whereas Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor, Ned Beatty as Otis, they seem almost to come from a different film, because they are very, so they're almost SNL type comedy. Yeah. There's like the scene where they try and hijack this military truck, which is carrying missiles, and Miss Tessmacher pretends to have a car crash, and then there's like a whole bunch of pretty old-fashioned 70s gags about giving the kiss of life.
Oh.
I mean, that all kind of feels like it comes out of, a sort of a Kentucky Fried Movie style 1970s sketch show.
Yes.
Whereas, in the Superman part of the story, there is some genuine, fairly terrifying peril. Especially one image, quite late in the film, which we'll probably come to in a bit.
I'm glad you mentioned that scene about the chest compressions. No, the chest massage, I guess, because it's very bad. It's quite sexist. So she's faked an accident because they're trying to distract this military group because they're trying to steal missiles and they're trying to. I mean, in some ways, there is a similarity to the other film. Lex Luthor's buying up all this low value land, I guess, east of the San Andreas Fault in California. They're trying to get missiles so that they can blow up the fault and create basically oceanfront property instead. Which I kind of like. I thought that was interesting. I guess their aim is to sort of crack off California so that they're going to be rich because they've got this property deal going. But when she's distracting the gang, she's falling off the motorcycle or whatnot, of the car, and then the officer does. He wants to do he recommends mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and chest compressions.
And you have to assume if somebody needs chest compressions and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, they are dead at that point, aren't they?
Yes.
So basically he's advocating sexual assault on a corpse. I mean, this is a strange place to go for the movie that you took your family to on Sunday night because it's the one movie you go to a year.
It's like one of those things where the cartoon or the animated films these days have something for the children and something for the adults, but this is really quite crude because he has the soldiers surround him as he's about to do the operation. Then he has them turn back to him, so he's got a moment alone with the corpse, and he's talking about it's very important to give her he says this exactly, a vigorous chest massage.
1978 was a strange time, wasn't it? I'm glad we've moved beyond those days, frankly.
I was beside myself. I was laughing, but it was sad. Yeah. So, yeah, I think, it's got a lot of the elements of the 2025 film. So I think, there's this idea, because in the 2025 film too, I mean, Lex Luthor is sort of he's going into the core of the earth to try and break it apart for whatever reason, and we see buildings topple down in Metropolis as people are trying to evacuate. So, I think the films are very similar in that way. So I think James Gunn takes a lot from this film, and as you said, he's basically telling everyone that he's seen this film from the credits on. There's I think the classic scene is sort of when they're flying around over Metropolis together. It's similar. I want to talk a little bit about interviews because there are interviews in both films that sort of work as these structural devices. There are 2 or 3 interviews in each film, or what I would call 2 or 3 interviews. And Lois Lane, she's got a super apartment in Metropolis on the reporter's salary because her deck is just beautiful. It's got a great view of the city. It looks very modest when you enter it, but boy, that rooftop deck is great. And Superman comes there for an interview, and then you eventually get to the chemistry, and they're actually sort of talking very flirty-like about underwear and organs and body parts. So it's not a subtle scene either. And then they end up, I think the love scene, if you will, is them flying together, and it's kind of classic. Yeah. And they kiss as they fly, and that sort of stands in for the love scene. But she has this crazy voiceover where you still hear her saying, "Can you read my mind? Can you read my mind?" And it's this sort of aerial ballet type sequence. They're dancing together in space, and it's also kind of odd because that's the only time I think we hear a voiceover in the film.
I was being charitable and assuming that what we were hearing was the article that Lois was going to write, or at least her kind of drafting the article in her mind as they fly. And she kind of comes up with this slightly cheesy, funny poem. And because I agreed. I'm not entirely sure what the rules are here because we are allowed to hear Lois's thoughts, but only during this one time in the film. It's peculiar, isn't it? But I was guessing that this was a movie showing you the mechanics of journalism with a capital J. But perhaps that's charitable.
That makes sense.
I have got a question about what happens just before that scene.
Okay.
So Metropolis, arrives in the film at like 48 minutes in. Yeah. With this kind of great Clark Kent, he appears by stepping up into the frame in the office. Like he comes up from the bottom of the frame into the picture. Yeah. It's like there's some really clever ways to introduce characters in this movie. In the same way that Gene Hackman, first we see his fingers on buttons, long time before we see his whole body. So they've really thought about how to introduce these characters. The first bit of like proper Superman type heroism is 109, so more than halfway through the film, I think, or at about halfway through. And after that we get a montage, and this is like, it takes until the midpoint to get the thing that the movie has promised, which is Christopher Reeve dressed as Superman, flying around doing Superman stuff. So he foils a jewel thief. He stops some guys on a boat who are getting away with cash.
Yeah.
He rescues a cat. And then this is my question to you. He
Save the cat.
He rescues Air Force One because like the engine blows up, and then he takes the place of one of the engines.
And flies.
But my question for you is: does Air Force One really have 5 pilots? Because there seem to be like at least 5 or maybe 6 pilots inside that plane. And I didn't know whether that was normal for a 747 in the 70s, or if you were the president, whether you always got 5 or 6 pilots instead of just 2.
You probably have a couple in case there's a cardiac arrest or one of them falls. I think I don't care about Air Force One anymore because there's this new jet coming from Qatar, I think it is.
Oh, yes, that would be much better.
And it's going to be awesome, and I don't think it's going to have any pilots at all. It's just going to fly like the wind. So, I think that Air Force One's a thing of the past, but I would think that safety precautions are so intense that you've got to have a couple decent pilots on board at any time.
Okay, I've started where there's just not enough room for all those pilots in that tiny little cockpit. But
it's a roomy plane. There's there are bedrooms in there and all conference rooms. It's plenty of space, very spacious. But the new one's better. And it's an innocent gift from the Qataris, which is really just nice of them to do that.
Very innocent gift. They're just being nice. Now, shortly after Lois and her poem, the film cracks into the third act, and we kind of chase to the climax, don't we? Yeah,
I'm very glad you mentioned that. I called it a clunky montage of superfeats.
That's good, superfeats.
To show the powers, he does all these things in 2 or 3 minutes, and it's kind of ridiculous, and it moves very fast, but it feels very clunky because we know he has the powers, but they have to show us the powers. We do we crack right on into the third act. I kept getting this feeling that, Beatty and Hackman aren't particularly scary antagonists. They're kind of bumbling along, but they're going forward with their plan. And then Luthor he figures out the kryptonite thing, and he gets himself some kryptonite, and his girlfriend helps Superman escape, because Superman is kind of he's sort of drowning in this hot tub that Lex Luthor is putting into Grand Central Station. I don't really know. But the girlfriend helps him again here, so we've got another sort of helpful... What was her name? Miss
Tessmacher. It's Miss Tessmacher.
Tessmacher. So she helps him again. Superman's able to... The missiles are already en route. Superman's able to divert some missiles. And he's able to actually go to the core of the Earth to prevent a tectonic shift. I mean, it's unbelievable how powerful he is. Hoover Dam is collapsing. Lois is somewhere around there. So even though it's Metropolis, which we think is New York City, I assumed most of this happens on the West Coast, I think. Lois has gotten herself into a car jam, and she's being buried alive. Superman's a little late to save her, but he extricates her, and he doesn't express fly her to a hospital or anything like that. You'd think he would do that, but instead it's like he's not sure if she's going to make it. So he makes the Earth turn back in time, is what I figured out here.
Yeah, so it's
going to the past.
Spinning the opposite way.
Yeah.
I don't know whether... I think originally I used to think that he just flies through the air faster than the speed of light, so he goes back in time. But I don't think that's it. I think he reverses the spin of the Earth, which obviously makes everything go backwards.
Yeah, it's amazing. So he gets back to a place before she dies, and then he sort of, he kisses her, kind of saves her with the kiss, ultimately delivers Lex Luthor and Otis to prison. There's a warden who's just waiting for them to be delivered to his prison. Saves the day. Saves maybe the Earth, or saves California anyway.
I mean, I think Lois is out there because she is doing a story about real estate deals in the Nevada desert, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, she's talking to this kind of Native American who says, I've sold a load of useless, worthless land to Lex Luthor for a high price.
Exactly.
And so I think that is why she is in the shadow of the Hoover Dam at that point. I mean, that scene where she is, because it's not like she is, she's not killed in an explosion or whatever, she is kind of buried alive, isn't she?
She's in a car, and it's filling up with sand or something, yes.
Yeah, and they kind of really kind of linger on that, don't they? I find that pretty horrifying scene. Even now, it's a pretty dark bit of material for a family film in 1978.
Yeah.
I don't remember being super frightened by that as a boy, but I bet I probably was. So a very different tone to those kind of crazy Gene Hackman scenes.
Yes, yeah.
By the time we get to someone being kind of buried alive.
It does feel like a couple different movies as a result, because I think the comedy was supposed to be very broad and slapstick, and you asked me if I'd laughed in the 2025 film. I didn't really. I definitely didn't laugh in the 1978 film.
I chuckled in the 1978 movie because for the first time, having seen this film, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 times over my life. Wow. This is the first time that I realised that Gene Hackman is wearing a different wig in every scene.
Oh.
And the punchline being that you realise at the end, when he's taken to prison by Superman, that his wig falls off and actually he's bald, and that's like the big reveal. And you go back and you realise, God, yes, his hair was different in every scene, and I didn't put that together until watching it this time round. I think Lex Luthor is a much more famous character these days, having been in, I don't know, Smallville or all the many different kind of Batman iterations that we've had. So I think we're aware that he's a bald character. In 1978, I don't know whether that idea had the same currency. So perhaps it was a bit of a fun surprise to see that he was bald at the end.
I think, sadly, toupees were more common back then and maybe more accepted. I mean, we looked at, what was it? Yeah, the 3 Days of the Condor, and we saw a number of toupees, and they were proudly worn, I think. And I think they're making a comeback, and this is a pro toupee podcast, so I think that we're ahead of the curve here. You remember, toupee or not toupee?
The curve being the shape of your head when you have no hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
exactly.
yes,
we're ahead of that. Oh, I like that. That's a play on words, ahead of.
Oh, that's good. Oh, you're so good.
Too bad we lost all of our sponsorships. My God.
They'll come back. They'll come back. Maybe.
Yeah, the John Williams score it's iconic, I guess. I think it's very invasive in the film too. I think, in hindsight, it works great on trailers and on YouTube and stuff like that. But it's very brassy, I guess, and very invasive for me. But I'm not a John Williams fan, so I'm happy to diss him at any chance I can get. I
rather miss the days when you could walk out of a film and whistle the theme song for the next week. Whereas I'm not sure that I could tell you or sing you the theme song to any of the films I've enjoyed in the last sort of 15 years or so. That kind of memorable theme is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I challenge you now, whistle one of the Hans Zimmer scores. I mean, you can't do it, can you?
Just again. Yeah, I just did. Yeah, it's great. F1.
Okay, you've proven me wrong.
Great score. This is kind of a messy film for me, and it's one of these things I saw when I was a kid. Probably loved it, or at least loved parts of it enough to get the underwear and the towel and all that. But
yes.
Ultimately, it's kind of messy, and I think there are just some weird tone shifts, and it's amazing how slow it is to get started. Those first 48 minutes are slow. Yeah, I just don't think it really ever gets cooking. I kind of like the fact that he saved us from a housing crisis, because I think Lex Luthor was going to be a terrible landlord. So I appreciate that work there, and that's interesting because, again, that is very much on the minds of probably everyone on the planet right now, but certainly Californians, is that how expensive housing is. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Lex Luthor is in with some of the big banks and some of the hedge funds and still active.
I'm not entirely sure that Lex Luthor's plan could work insofar as if you tip the whole of California into the sea, if you don't give people 72 hours notice, then all the denizens of California will also be in the sea at the same time. Yeah. So there will be nobody left alive to buy your new West Coast properties.
You're right. The home buyers. Yep. Ooh. Look, logistics are not necessarily a strong point for a lot of the superhero films, but you raise a good one. That's a great point.
A lot of this will be nostalgia, but I personally squealed with joy through a lot of this film, It takes me back to the late 70s. It takes me back to like the excitement of waiting for Christmas Day on 1980, something like that, when I knew that Superman was going to be on TV on Christmas Day. it does take a long time to get going, but all of those early scenes are still enjoyable, I think. I mean, it's crazy watching Marlon Brando act his socks off and be kind of so tremendously serious for the first 8 minutes of the film and then never reappear at all.
Yeah.
Apart from as a kind of weird ice mask about about the 40-minute mark. I think, actually, there's a lot to enjoy. I personally found the pacing perfectly acceptable. I was not bored at any point during this rewatch, and I've seen it 4 or 5 times. Yeah. I think if this film proves anything, it proves that casting is 75% of the success of your film. Because Christopher Reeve is just perfect, I think, in this film. It's difficult to imagine him being beaten. I think David Corenswet, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
I think so, yeah.
He makes a lovely Superman. I really enjoyed him in the new one, but he's not Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
Who could be?
They look so similar, though. They really go after that look, the Christopher Reeve look, for sure. So similar.
Just something kind of so perfect and sort of innocent seeming about Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
And when you see him in interviews, he seems broadly to be fairly similar to Clark Kent, actually, or fairly similar to Superman. There isn't an enormous difference between the character that he plays and the real man. At least as far as when you see him on those early 80s, late 70s talk shows.
Yeah.
So if you get the right actor to play Superman, you can a lot of the work is done for you, I think. So I enjoyed it. It's a funny bit of work, isn't it?
Yes.
And it does struggle with tone, but it's still successful, I think, as a family film. We watched it as a family about 3 or 4 years ago, and my children still enjoyed it. It still succeeds on that level, I think.
How did you watch it this time around where you were squealing with joy?
Upstairs with my headphones on, so... luckily no one else was in the house this afternoon, actually, so it's just me and the dog.
Nice.
Even just the music, I think, is under my skin, and still does the trick for me. It was made for $55 million, made $300 million.
Wow.
I remember Marlon Brando being, supposedly making like a ludicrous amount of money per word, something like that. Yeah. There's a famous back behind the scenes footage of him shooting his scenes, and he would never memorize any of his lines, so all his lines are written up on these big cue cards that are being held up on the set. He's just kind of reading the lines off these cards, and then was paid an enormous amount of money. I think he later sued the producers because they felt they didn't give him enough money, and he wanted even more. Yeah. So I think he did very well out of this movie. And he does bring an element of gravitas. But it's also got, Trevor Howard is in it, isn't he, for about sort of 5 seconds or something. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, that kind of early cast. Lots of, well-known actors turn up just to wear these luminous suits and then get chucked into a ditch. Amazing, really, tremendously lavish. Really feels like an event, this film, even now.
Well, boy.
We should see whether we can bring these two films together.
Oh.
But before we do... I'm going to force you just to very quickly revise the entire history of the universe as you travel in a tiny spiky pod through the galaxy. And then I'm going to ask you to play Who Am I? Who am I?
I remember this game. Now that you've turned the Earth back a few weeks to a previous podding experience.
So one of our theses is that we go to movies to see ourselves. Sometimes we see ourselves and sometimes we don't. I reckon most podcasts, we've ended up seeing a version of ourselves on screen somehow, somewhere. So did you see yourself on screen this week?
Boy, I had to look deeply into a couple of different screens to see myself. And I'm not proud of how I came out, honestly. Otis in the first Superman, the original. Superman, the movie.
Right, yep.
I just felt like he was out of his element and along for the ride and not of much use whatsoever. And also just not even useful for his pathetic attempts at humor. So I think I'm Otis.
So I mean, there is a character called Otis in like the new Superman. I'm not entirely sure who it is.
Is it the sidekick, though? Yeah.
It's one of the sidekicks. I'm not sure which one it is. I think it might be the guy who says "safety first, people" when they're all exiting the collapsing building, something like that. I think that guy is Otis. I think, or maybe it's the guy with the big glasses and the moustache. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really doesn't put the same work in as Ned Beatty. I must say.
How about yourself? I mean, I like the robot doctors. You could be a robot doctor number 4, maybe?
Oh, those robot doctors are pretty good, actually. Yeah. Lovely bedside manner as well. I've got a lot to learn from them. Mm-hmm. As you know, I am a sentimental sucker, so I did see a little bit of myself in Superman's Kansan dad in this year's movie. Okay, not only because I have a similar hairline, and a similar figure these days, I think, to Superman's dad. I'm working on it. But also, he gives that a simple little speech. I mean, I think that speech is a little bit of good writing because he talks to his son. They're just kind of chit-chatting about the ordinary, everyday bit of life that Superman is not a part of anymore. And he says, we met some friends and we went for burritos, and the burritos were really good. And I think it's actually significant that he's talking about Mexican food and not apple pie or whatever. Yeah. Or I think this is a little tiny nod at multiculturalism and mixing of cultures. I think it's important that he talks about burritos there. Yeah. And then he just says, this thing, I couldn't be more proud of you. Although it's a lovely, I really feel like that sometimes. Yeah. That's a nice articulation of some feelings that I genuinely have. On the other hand, I do sometimes feel like Mr. Terrific some days as well. Not because I am a genius, and not because I have a flying chair, and not because I have a force field at my controller, not even because I have a massive capital letter T written across my face to remind the audience who I am. Yeah. But he does sometimes give Superman the side eye and makes a real kind of, oh, come on, which is sometimes that's how I feel towards the end of a very lengthy operation. I feel like sometimes I want to turn to the surgeons and just say, oh, just hit it in the eyes. Yes. Hurry up and get it over with. Faster. So I can sympathise with this. Terrific.
Wow. Good for you. You got two Who Am I's in there for the price of one.
2 for the price of one. That means I get a free pass next time. Right. Well, let's see if we can draw these two wildly different films together. See if we can do our super synthesis.
I love the fact that Hans Zimmer donated his music for the synthesis part of the program.
Yeah, it's an unused music cue from every Hans Zimmer film ever made. Yes, you're right. So, these films clearly have a lot in common. Their titles, for a start, their cast of characters. One is not quite a carbon copy of another, but they are both treading the same ground and trying to do it differently. But films are about the times that they come from. So this is what I wrote in my notes. So the original 1978 Superman is a product of the Carter years. Am I right? Jimmy Carter was in the White House.
Couple years, yeah. I mean, by the time they're filmed, this is 78, right? So
yeah.
I mean, they may have been writing it even before Carter years, but yeah.
When was Reagan elected then?
1980.
80, right? Okay, yeah. So this film had come and gone before Reagan made it into the White House. Yeah. And were those times a little bit more optimistic? Was that a gentler time, the late 70s? I mean, the concerns of Superman the movie from 1978 are sort of the concerns of the late 70s, insofar as it's worried about environmental catastrophe, isn't it? It's worried about earthquakes. It is kind of worried about real estate, I suppose.
Yeah, sort of the beginnings of it.
It comes from a world where working in the news was honourable and admirable, and unquestionably of moral authority, which is very different to the world of 2025, I think.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think so. Yeah. In terms of also just the politics beyond this, and this is something I like. 2025 concerns itself with the politics of the planet a bit more than the 78 film, which is much more probably American politics and sort of real estate in particular.
Yeah, the 78 film is much more parochial, isn't it? It's much more local.
Yeah. And that's why it's interesting that they've changed from the Truth, Justice, and the American Way, I think is how it was originally. As a kid, that's how I remember it, to Truth, Justice, and the Humankind Way or the Human Way or something like that. So it's definitely got a more global perspective by 2025 than the 1978 version. Yeah.
I mean, the new film is certainly more cynical, isn't it? I mean, I can't imagine Gene Hackman playing Russian roulette with a hostage.
Yeah.
This film is pretty. The new film is pretty world weary, isn't it? And cynical. It is a film which is worried about war on an international stage.
Yeah.
And it's aware that war on an international stage comes into our homes, whichever country we live in, and it's very into this notion of social media disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing that made me chuckle a little bit in the new Superman movie is, and I'm sure this is deliberate, is how very, very quickly public opinion sways. I mean, the moment that a little video about Superman's parents telling him to enslave the Earth appears on the internet, within 7 or 8 seconds, the whole of the world hates Superman.
Yeah.
And then the moment that an announcement comes that Lex Luthor was planning to be in cahoots with the Prime Minister of Moravia and do a big real estate deal, then the very second that appears on CNN, the whole world realizes that Lex Luthor is evil and they turn on him. Yeah. Everything happens within seconds in a way, whereas no one is waiting for the next edition of the Daily Planet so that they can read the news headlines and form their own opinion over a matter of weeks. It's all instant. Yeah,
I think that that sort of helps the 2025 film version be a little scarier too. I think there's something very innocent about the 78 film and the bumbling antagonists, whereas Lex Luthor in 2025 is dark. And I love these moments of having created a what is it, like a pocket universe? Is it what
a pocket universe?
A pocket universe with this internment camp or this prison is just a great little nod to some of the evil things that certain state players will concoct in order to control a population. I thought that was nice. There's some touches that James Gunn has put in there that I really, really like, and that's why that film strikes me as being smarter in so many ways. So I think that the 2025 version is so much more dangerous, in part because the protagonist and the violence, the characters that the protagonist has created are so much more dangerous. And we live in more dangerous times, so I think it has an extra relevance, I think, than 78 Superman. I'm going to say something which is probably a little controversial.
Oh yes, brilliant!
Fantastic. I wanted to see a little bit more. I want to see more Clark Kent in both of these films. Like I didn't get the dichotomy of the character enough, where the Clark Kent is informing the Superman character, and there's very little division in 2025. In fact, I think there was only one scene where he's really Clark Kent at the paper office. There's a bit more in the 78 version, and I think they're totally different characters. I mean, and they're not like the way that Corn Sweat plays it. They're very similar. He's being interviewed as Clark Kent is being interviewed as Superman, and it's like they're one and the same. Whereas I think Christopher Reeve does a nice job of really playing the goofier, kind of awkward Clark Kent more, and then that balances with the absolutely incomparable and unconquerable Superman. So I want to see a little bit more Clark Kent, because I don't. That character has to inform Superman a little bit more and what his decisions are, because Clark Kent, you figure, is the good guy in all situations. And so we don't see him as a reporter very much in certainly in the second film. And I just think I wanted more Clark Kent. I know that sounds kind of goofy in a Superman film.
No, because Clark Kent is half of who Superman is.
Yeah.
I remember reading one critic say, or one comment, I don't know, someone online saying that Clark Kent is what Superman thinks humans are like. I'm not sure if I agree with that or not, but I think the idea is that it's him trying to reflect us back at ourselves, which seems kind of tremendously uncharitable, though. I wrote in the bottom of my notes here, I don't know if there is an answer to this question. I wrote, "What is Superman for?" We have a kind of sort of universal legend. He's a little bit like Robin Hood or Hercules or there are Aeneas or whatever. There are any number of important cultural figures from the past, the heroes of a culture, tell you something about what the culture believes. Because the reason I mention it is because a lot of the publicity in this country, at least for Superman, has focused on the log line, the slogan for the movie, which is just "look up." It's a line that he says in the movie, more or less, where he kind of says "eyes up here," doesn't he, or whatever. And there is this notion of, well, is it a bird? Is it a plane? Look to the sky.
That's right.
But I think clearly they're trying to use it as a meaning for, let's try and be optimistic. Let's look on the bright side, or at least let's try to find the good in human nature. Yeah. This sort of pretty bright, saturated, colourful film with a character at its centre who is intended to be someone like you and me, who gets out of bed every day and tries really hard to do the right thing, even if he doesn't quite know what the right thing is. I think the intention is that today, that character might inspire us a little bit. It might help us to make the right choices. I think in the 1970s, there was no ambiguity about what the right thing to do was. And so it's interesting how that film doesn't really need to make much of a moral argument, because the bad guys are cartoonish and the good guys are obviously good. Whereas in this film, we have one good guy who is fairly two-dimensionally good. He's a relatively simple soul with a lot of powers. The other good guys that he allies himself with are considerably more ambiguous, aren't they? Hawk Girl drops the Prime Minister of Baravia to his death. Green Lantern, he stops a war, but he does it by flipping the bird at all of the tanks and flipping them upside down, doesn't he?
Yes.
Element Man, Metamorpho, whatever. He's a guy with some pretty serious moral conflicts who has to be prodded to make the right choice halfway through the movie. These are more complicated characters who are not necessarily the obvious right choice all the way through. Even Mr. Terrific, who comes in and saves the day, he's still the same guy who says, "Oh, hit it in the eyes." I mean, I wonder whether Superman being the main character in this film, but being the only person who is fairly uncontroversial in his outlook, there's not very much light and dark and shade there. He's trying really hard just to be good with a capital G. Is that the hero we need now, or is that a hero who doesn't really understand life in 2025?
Is it a Gandhi thing? You are the future you envision, or you are the hero we need right now? I don't know. That's somewhere out there. The TRCC family knows that I don't like superhero films because I find them to be disempowering. There's this Christ thing, or this Deus Ex Machina thing. We're expecting some sort of hero to come in and solve all our problems, whereas I really prefer the films where couple people who are just average people try to do the right thing, like Clark Kent, actually make something happen and actually improve things or solve a problem. So I find them all disempowering, because it's just like we're waiting around, we're watching this on social media, we're responding to it, but we're not actually doing anything to address the problems ourselves. So I find like it's just we're waiting for someone else to do all the heavy lifting, even if it's lifting the entire world or pushing it backwards. So I'd like Superman to come back and turn that Earth back, I don't know, 150, 200 years.
Yes. Yeah, can we just press restart,
Yeah, if
please?
he's really going to help us.
Please, Superman, please.
Couple minutes or a couple hours is not going to be enough, Superman.
On social... Oh, no, wait, no, I'm doing the socials.
Yeah, you can do
that.
No,
wait, because we've still got time to talk about what else has been playing at this theatre.
Ooh, good. You have to go first. I mean, you're the kind of guy who goes and watches the same film twice in one day, so you must have seen a lot of good stuff.
Well, I did something a little bit similar this week, which is that I caught up with most of the rest of James Gunn's other films.
Oh.
So at least several of them. So I've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but I haven't seen his earlier films. So this week I watched Slither, which is his kind of feature directing debut from 2006. It stars Nathan Fillion, who's also in Superman. Yeah. Michael Rooker, who appears as one of the robots in Superman. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Banks is in it. Oh. And it's a slightly spoofy alien invasion body horror picture. It struggles a little bit with tone. It's okay, And it's supposed to be a bit comical, but then also it's a bit gross out, and he hasn't quite got control of the material, and it wasn't a particular success. Yeah. Then I watched Super, which is James Gunn's 2010 movie. Which I think is the movie which got him the gig to direct Guardians of the Galaxy. It is a super low budget superhero spoof. So I think Slither was made for like sort of, I don't know, $5 to $10 million, something like that. And Super, so Slither wasn't a hit. So the next movie was Super, which was made for like $500,000 or something like that. It was made very, very cheaply. Rainn Wilson is in it from The Office.
Oh, yeah.
Elliot Page. Liv Tyler is in it, Kevin Bacon. I mean, it's a good cast, actually. And they were all working on scale or less. It's a very low-budget superhero spoof. Has some very, very graphic violence in it. And it looks very inexpensively made. It looks really pretty cheap. The good thing about both of these films is that they are brief. They're both 90 minutes. And they are okay. And I watched both of these films expecting to learn a lot about James Gunn's process, because they're both written and directed by him. And I was expecting there to be several nods to these films in the new Superman movie, and basically neither of those are true. I didn't really quite understand a lot about his process from watching them, and there's not a great deal of the way in nods in the new film, except that the one thing you can learn is that James Gunn, I think, must be fun to work with, because people return to work with him again and again and again. He has a faithful gang of acolytes. Nathan Fillion is in almost everything that he does. Michael Rooker is in pretty much everything that he does. He's got his brother appears in everything that he does. He's got like a small group of actors who clearly adore him and trust him and work with him exhaustively. So clearly he's the sort of person who, if he picks the phone up, there are some people who will always answer. And you think, you know what, maybe out of all of that, the thing I've learned is he's probably a good bloke. Yeah. Maybe he's a good bloke, because if he wasn't, you wouldn't get the same people back again and again to make the movies. Are the movies all good? No, they're not all good. But he's trying, and he has, some themes that return again and again. Underdogs, family, he kind of loves nerd culture. I mean, you can sort of see the things that interest him. But clearly, he seems to be an all right bloke. Yeah. That's what I would say.
He does seem like an all right bloke. You're right, yeah.
Film business needs more of those, I think.
Yeah.
What have you seen this week?
Nothing. I had a very anti-film week. I went to a state park with no Wi-Fi, no connection to the outside world.
Oh, my God.
I climbed some mountains. I listened to silence. I swam. I thought. I wrote some lines on scraps of paper. Oh, and I loved every minute of it. It's away from civilization. And then I did come back, and the very next night I saw St. Vincent in concert, and that was amazing.
Oh!
I guess she had just played at Glastonbury for 100,000 people, and then we saw her in a theater, maybe 2,000 people. Really good show. So if anyone has a chance to see St. Vincent, do it. And then if anyone has a chance to get away from films and humanity and civilization and technology, do that too.
The Two Real Cinema Club, the podcast about films that tells you to not watch films.
We've done that before, haven't we? You do that when
There's a pattern forming. On Instagram, we are at Two Real Cinema Club, and Blue Sky as well, at Two Real Cinema Club. Read the blog at tworealcinemaclub.com. Comment on our YouTube channel, or email us at tworealcinemaclub@gmail.com. And finally, recommend us to your friends. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us out, I think, maybe, probably. Yeah. Go on. You'd love to. You'd love to. Next time, we have no idea what we're going to watch. We have got a couple of weeks off. We're going to be hanging out at the popcorn counter. We will be back with a full episode in 3 weeks' time. And we'll figure out what we're going to watch then.
Yeah, I do wonder if we're not too far away from a pod where we're not even going to watch films.
We should just review The Wilderness, I think. Yes, excellent Wilderness. Would Wilderness again. 5 stars. Thanks, as always, for joining us. We will see you next.